Hey there team, welcome back to the channel and welcome to Mecha BREAK. This is the game that we're having a look at today. Now if you're not across it, I do overviews on the channel. I just look at the first 2 hours of a game because of the Steam refund window. I usually have a bit of a spiel around that. There are exceptions to this rule, especially when we do free-to-play games, which that's what this is. You can download it and play it for free right now. It's got microtransactions, we'll touch on that, but still playing it for 2 hours should give you an idea of whether it's your kind of thing or not. And I'll tell you what, I really like this. Though it's pretty obtuse. There's a lot of menus and stuff going on. It took a little while for me to really understand what's happening here. The game is actually covering a lot of different areas and sort of splitting itself into subgenres as well. But we'll get to all of that. Starting at the beginning, yes, it's a Chinese developed mech warrior thing, Gundam thing. I'm not really a Gundam person at all. However, the movement and controls of this are very accessible. It's not armor core. It's not that Souls-like hardcore get the move set right. This is much more of a elbow room brawler type game. Well, it depends on the mech that you pick, right? Because there's range, there's brawling, and it balances both incredibly well, which is usually something that games fumble. The whole thing has a prologue that starts off and has this some really poppy music, as they seem to want to do in a lot of these Asian type games. I've been playing Stellar Blade, the same sort of thing. It's still a poppy, catchy soundtrack, but traditionally, from a Western perspective, it doesn't really fit. But then again, I kind of like it, so maybe it does fit. But it has a pretty bombastic prologue opening. I still don't really get what's going on. You're some mech warrior lady. I mean, you can pick a dude, but I was like, well, you know, they clearly want to celebrate the female form. I might as well celebrate with them. So you got this chick that's sewn into her suit with an absolute dump truck, and the camera likes to remind you of it. But hey, that's what gamers want. You can't really complain. And you jump in a mech warrior and then you're shooting, and it's a bit on rails in the prologue thing. Very, like I said, bombastic, Hollywood bait, cinematic if you might say, with this pounding poppy beat, and I was hooked immediately. There probably is some sort of story mission in there somewhere, but I can't find it. There's challenge missions that might progress the story, I'm not sure. But the 2 core loops are a sort of extraction shooter type Tarkov thing and a PvP 6v6 objective based, you know, team deathmatch, which it feels refreshingly old school. Before I get to the modes, I'll talk about just the core loop a little bit, right? Third person mech warrior, very fluid, snappy movement. I love it. You're like roller skating around, but you can go aerial and all that, but you're generally faster on the ground. Depending on the mech that you sort of choose as your default, there's a whole bunch of differences between them. The gunplay is actually really aggressively auto-aim. All you got to do is make sure you're in the right range and you point at the right dude, and then, you know, you dodge around, and it creates for these unusual space duels, you know, where you're in the air dipping and diving and trying to break line of sight and that sort of thing. And the same thing goes for melee. It's very quite snappy. It's not like you explicitly lock on, though there is a lock on. It just sort of happens automatically. But that's one of the things that you might not get in translation. Having a look at this, you might think it's armored core. You might think it's hardcore, very strict windows. It's not, right? I don't want to say it's sloppy, but it's definitely got a more mass appeal to it. It's more arcadey. I actually love it. I really do. Not that there's anything wrong with Armored Core, but that might be one of the things that people look at this and go, oh, maybe it's hardcore and all that. It's not really, not at all. It's great fun. It kind of makes me feel like this should have come out on a Dreamcast or something like that. I'll touch on the Tarkov mode because I only really went in for 1 round and it went for a fair bit of time. But yeah, you go into this open world and there is a story going on in the background, but they've only given me a little bit. There's some sort of nano parasitic monster creature stuff, but it creates storms in it as well. So you have dynamic weather in the Tarkov extractor. These huge storms that kind of wipe things out, and it's rainy and it changes, and it's really fun. You just cruise around killing things, and they drop loot and you pick them up, and a lot of it is loot boxes for these mods that you can slot into your mech, which ties back when you deploy. There's a ceiling to the sort of gear level that you're deploying in, because I'm an absolute baby, you know, with no mods going in. I was like 180 out of 2,000, right? So you got to be careful out there. There's probably going to be some dangerous big boys, but it seems that there are bracketed ceilings. And I don't know if you go past 2,000 gear score, maybe there's another bracket, or maybe just 2,000 is a hard cap for everyone, but there is a limit. And as best as I can tell, I don't know if you can buy mods, if you can buy mods from the store Having said that, I'm pretty sure there's a microtransaction store that's separate from kind of an auction house. So you can sell crap you don't want and buy it from people. So you could probably work real world money into that somehow from an exchange from microtransactions, but there does seem to be a ceiling anyway, so I suppose you can only buy yourself so far ahead. I didn't bump into any players when I was in that mode. I just cruised around, filled up on loot. You had to wait for the extraction beacons to spawn and deploy, and it would seem that they incrementally do that every like 5-10 minutes or something. So, maybe if one's too hot, you don't have to extract from. It's a little bit more Dark Zone from the Division, in truth, the way that it extracts. In fact, it feels that way, a bit more console-ified, a bit more mainstream and user-friendly. But then there's the PvP mode, which absolutely grabbed me. Again, the information is so difficult to pass out, but it seems that the whole modding gear system that's in the Tarkov mode doesn't happen in PvP. In PvP, it's just all even Steven. And you start with probably a dozen mechs unlocked. I guess you could buy more. I don't spend too much time in money shops because I'm not a pearl clutcher. I'm not looking to be offended by the presence of a transaction. The way I see it is, if the game's fun on its own, I'll just play it. Then if I play it for a lot of time, I'll probably put money into it. I think this is a pretty normal response for people that aren't terminally online. Don't get me wrong, there seems to be some egregious stuff in here. Like, one of the first things that popped up was this Sheila you could buy. They call your character the protagonist, but I guess maybe you can buy other characters with their mechs. And it was like $70 Australian or something ludicrous. And at the end of the day, I don't care, right? Let it be in there, let people buy it, whatever. If it turns out over time it unbalances the game and I start to have an unpleasant experience, well, I'll just hang it up. But I won't forget that I had fun up until that point. It's not a big deal, and I wouldn't have paid any money. So yeah, there's microtransactions in there, there's egregious ones, but such is the case when you're dealing with free-to-play games. In the PvP arena, at least now, at launch, everyone's still trying to figure it out. You pick, a mech that you like, you go in, 6v6, random the map, there's different objectives. I've fallen in love with this one mech called Welkin, who's a close range brawler, a big beefy dude with a friggin' laser battle axe. And you've got this prick of an ability that creates a square shield around you, only a couple of meters across, but it traps people in with you. So I would dive on their like squishy, sooky snipers and flyers, and the dudes that don't want to be trapped. I just absolute lock onto them, and you can do this turbo sprint as this dude, because obviously there is a balance consideration. He is so heavily melee, he's got a huge gap closer, and all you really got to do is press the attack button and you just start zooming. It uses up a lot of your energy, your stamina. That's a big part of it, is energy management. But yeah, I'll just dive on these little squishies and trap them in my little booth of emotion, and you can almost feel them screaming through their side of the computer and just absolutely pound the shit out of them. I got an MVP, but I kept queuing up, and after I finished my 2 hours, I kept queuing up again because I'm having too much fun. I must have misclicked or something queuing in, and I accidentally picked some other transformer. Oh, it's funny that I say that, slip of the tongue. That's what this reminds me of. Again, I'm not a Gundam dude, but I ended up picking up a dude which can only be described as like a Decepticon transformer, and it was reminding me of War of Cybertron. That's exactly what it feels like. And that was cool, even though he wasn't what I picked. He's sort of this light flyer, and you can just turn into a jet at whim, and you busting through sonic booms and that sort of stuff and shooting dudes, and a lot of his interplay seems to be trying to stay in the sky, but literally transforming between man mode and jet mode. And your gun's not as good in man mode, but your maneuverability obviously is a lot more strafable and closer for closer engagements. And yeah, I wasn't terribly good at him, but I appreciated how unusual he was. And then you've got a lot of the way that it transitions when you eject out of your seat, and then you see your quick replay from the enemy's perspective or whatever. It's just really polished and well done. And there's so many different classes, and it's varied, and who knows, look mate, it's one of those things, once you put this into the population and you give them a chance to break it and come up with new metas, you may expose problems with the game. But this happens with all multiplayer type games. But for now, it feels incredibly fun and as far as I can tell, balanced. from the perspective of a dude that just goes and bashes snipers and all that, but I've had to deal with these like ninja sneaky dudes, and they really knew what they were doing. They keep cloning and cloaking and jumping around, and I feel like a big brute ogre trying to figure out which one of them's which, and it's really fun. There's a class for everybody, and there's something so, like I said, refreshingly old school about the PvP in this. As someone that's not really drawn to that stuff, I was having a great time. Like I said, I'm having flashbacks to Xbox, Dreamcast times, playing, you know, brawler, PvP, messy mode stuff. I'm running out of words to describe it because I'm just having too much fun, to be honest. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Anyway, beyond that, I'm waffling. I'm obviously quite smitten. It's free. Give it a go. What do you got to lose? You might find you actually end up having fun. Take that from someone that doesn't like Gundams or anything like that. I think this is great fun. I'm going to bully some of my mates into downloading it and queuing up with me. Anyway, team, might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.